This is ZyCodes, and today I'll be continuing building my 2D RPG by creating some systems that I'll need later on. Since I'm not using a game engine, I'll have to design all these systems from scratch for my game. I'll also share a few general tips I've learned along the way. Hopefully they'll help you on your journey. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is clean up some of this code. Your main class is the entry point to your program, and you don't want it to be cluttered, so I'm going to move all this code for creating a window to a new class. And that brings me to tip 1. Organization matters. The project might be small right now, but it can grow quickly as you add new systems and features. Creating an organization system now is much easier than organizing everything when you have 100 classes. Make sure you know what every class is for and where it's located in your file structure. That can save you hours in the long run. Now that we have a separate class for our window, my second tip is to make your project your own. That might sound obvious, but if you just take code directly from a tutorial, you aren't learning much. By changing things to your liking, you not only have to understand what the code does, but how changing certain parts affect the whole. By customizing something you found, you avoid copying someone else's work, and you learn much more. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use tutorials or other people's code. They can be very useful. Now this fits in nicely with my third tip. Utilize resources. YouTube, Stack Overflow, GitHub, documentation. There are many websites and resources you can use to find help with something you're struggling with. Just make sure you use these resources as a starting point, not a final product. Understand what the code does, why it works, and take it from there. So what I've done here in the window class is making it a singleton. This means that only one instance of the class can exist. I added width, height, and title variables that the class should store as well. I also went through the code and adjusted the spacing to my liking. I rearranged the order of some lines of code to make the loop method feel more intuitive to me, and I moved the lines that were inside the method but outside the while loop to the end of the init method. I set the background of the window to black, as well as changed the title to 2D RPG. The last thing I did was added a section that gets the resolution of the main monitor and sets the window size to half the width and height of that, while making sure to maintain the aspect ratio. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is add two classes, a key listener and a mouse listener. These classes will allow the program to be able to use player input, which brings me to tip 4. Build systems before features. Jumping straight into making a controllable player is a lot of work for not much reward. Make the systems first. Build reusable code for rendering, loading textures, handling input, and more. That way, once you have all those systems in place, creating a player will be much easier, and you can reuse that code to make other features too. Doing this may seem boring at first, but it will make your life a lot easier down the road. So what I've done here is made a class that checks for keyboard input and updates an array with booleans for each key. I made a similar class for the mouse, but the mouse tracks its position and its scroll wheel in addition to its buttons. Now the next tip is to learn to read documentation. There won't be a tutorial for everything. Learning how to understand documentation is vital for a developer, so you can learn how to use a library or specific class. For example, in the input handlers, you need to set up callbacks for your input, and the GLFW docs show you exactly how each callback is structured and how to implement it. As you can see, the GLFW documentation shows you exactly how to structure your method, which is the same as I put it in my class. My next tip is to help yourself debug. Make your program tell you what went wrong. It'll save you hours in the long run. So the next thing I'm going to do is make a class where I can handle various errors across the engine. So what I'm going to do here is make methods in this class for each error. For example, I'll make glfw init error, and I'll paste the code from lwjgl's example, and replace that line in the window class with the method call. That leads me into tip 7. Name things clearly. By naming methods and classes appropriately, you will be able to know what each part of your code is for. It doesn't make sense to call my error handler methods error1 and error2. I won't know what they're for or which one to use, so help yourself to know what you're doing. That's it for new systems I'm going to be adding today, but there's still a bit more I want to talk about. So tip 8 is to test as you go. Don't spend hours on end making a ton of systems that build on each other only to find out something doesn't work. It'll take you way longer to figure out what's wrong and even longer to fix it. Work in smaller chunks and test your program often to make sure everything is working. I'll add some code to see if the input listeners work. I'll redo what was in the LWJGL example code and make my window close if the escape key is pressed, but instead implementing my key listener class. So let's test. When I press the escape key, the window closes. Nice. And for my final 2 tips, first, make good comments. Comments are very important for yourself and others to understand what your program is doing, what each part is for, and they're even just useful for quick notes. A good rule of thumb for commenting is comment why, not what. Someone reading your code can look line by line to see what each part is actually doing. You want to say why a line of code is needed in the context of the program. You only really need to comment what a line does when it's actually confusing. A perfect example of this is the line for GL create capabilities. This comment tells you why the line is needed, but it also explains what it does, as that line is a bit confusing. Now this does make a large comment block, so you don't want to do this for everything, as you can over-comment and it will make your code very cluttered and hard to read. My last tip of the video is to share your work. It could just be showing it to your friends, publishing your project on GitHub, or doing what I'm doing and making a devlog series on YouTube. By sharing your work, you can get feedback from others so that you can improve your skills, or others could take inspiration from you. In addition, I found that sharing your progress gives you more motivation to continue. So with that, we've had 10 tips, and I hope they will help you out on your programming journey. I hope you've enjoyed the video and got something out of it. Until next time.